Hey there, and welcome to another video on our channel. Here, we share the amazing stories of people who have been close to death or had other spiritual experiences. We are going to talk about the life of Ramon Valera today. He said that after he died, he realized that everything we think we know is false. Please subscribe now if you haven't already, and leave a message with your name and date of birth. Let's hear about Ramon.
Hi, my name is Ramon Valera. I'm just a normal guy who lives in a normal place. I'm 42 years old and work as an accountant for a medium-sized business. From the outside, it looks like I have a pretty normal life. I've been married to Maria for 15 years. My sister Laura is younger than me, and our dog Rex is like family. I have never really believed anything that I couldn't see or touch. It never made sense to me to believe in religion, faith, or life after death. It looked like there were only three things in life: being born, living, and dying. That's it. I thought that. Then something happened that shook my whole view of the world. I felt like I was on the edge of life and death during that event. It made me doubt everything I thought I knew about the real world. That's what I want to talk about today. To be honest, I'm still working through a lot of it. It's not an easy story to tell, but I feel like I need to talk about it because it has changed who I am and how I see the world. Before we begin, please know that I'm not here to get attention or make up stories to impress. I really had a hard time for a while before I decided to speak out. A big worry was that people would find this story too strange, maybe even crazy, or that no one would believe it. But after giving it a lot of thought, it became clear that this wasn't just a personal experience. It could make other people think about their own lives and what's important. It took place about a year ago, during a pretty rough time for me. Things felt like they were getting out of hand at work. Maria and I were fighting more than ever, and work was a mess. I made a choice that almost killed me because I was stressed out and impulsive. In a strange way, though, that choice set me on a journey of finding that was scary, strange, and deeply life-changing. I'm going to talk about that night and what happened afterward in a moment. I went from being in a dark cave to seeing the light at the end of it, living through past lives, and learning some shocking facts about life. It sounds a little crazy, doesn't it? If someone had told me this a year ago, I would have laughed it off and moved on. I can't claim it didn't happen now that I've been through it, though. I cannot deny what I went through. I'd like to ask you to go on this journey with me if you're up for it. Keep an open mind. This isn't about teaching or persuading anyone of something. It's just about talking about an event. It might make you think about what life is really like. Who knows? It all began on a Friday night. When I got home from a particularly bad day at work, things were already tense. I had a fight with Maria earlier in the week, and the air was heavy. I was totally worn out, tired, and without any hope. I did something I never thought I'd do that night. I opened the drawer in the bathroom and took out a bottle of sleeping pills that Maria's doctor had given her a few months ago. Then I took some strong drugs that I used to use for my back pain. I got a bottle of whiskey at the bar, which was my next stop. Yes, that does sound completely dangerous, right? Each time I think about what I did, I ask myself, what were you thinking, Ramon? But to be honest, I wasn't thinking straight at that time. In my mind, it felt like a heavy, dark cloud had taken over. At that point, stopping the pain and learning how to fill the void I felt were the only things that counted. So, there I was, sitting on the couch with a bunch of pills in my hand and drinking a lot of whiskey to wash them down. A part of me knew it was careless and maybe even dangerous, but I really didn't care anymore. If I wake up tomorrow, great, I thought. If not, that might be okay too. As the drugs and alcohol began to work, I began to feel heavy, see things less clearly, and my ideas began to slowly fade away. I must have finally passed out on the couch. The next part isn't clear. I woke up in the middle of the night because my chest hurt so much. It was hard to breathe because I felt like a giant was sitting on me. My body wouldn't let me move, even though I tried. That's when the fear really set in. I realized what I had done for the first time, and I felt terrible about it. I tried to scream for help, but could only make a weak moan. I thought about life goals I still had, like Maria, my sister, Rex, and other things. Not like this. I didn't want it to end. But then it got dark again, and as my mind slowly faded away, my body started to calm down. After that, things became very strange. All of a sudden, I wasn't on my couch. I wasn't at all familiar with the place. I felt like I was floating in a huge, dark place with nothing around me to give me a sense of where I was. I slowly felt like I was moving, but not in the normal way. It felt more like an unseen current was slowly pulling me along. Now I knew what it was. I was in a tube. But this tube wasn't what you thought it would be like. The walls weren't strong like concrete or brick. The strange, dark, almost gooey stuff that they were made of looked like wet mud. I was interested in the texture. It was like the walls were calling out to me, so I could touch them. At first, I reached out, but then I realized I didn't have any hands. I didn't have a body at all. What I was just awareness. It's just this knowledge that's floating through the tunnel. Time? There didn't seem to be any time there. There was no way for me to know how long I was floating through that tube. I thought I was out of time and in a totally different world from the one we normally live in. I started to hear sounds as I kept going through the tube. At first, they were just whispers that were too far away and too quiet to make out, but over time, they got louder and clearer. Suddenly, there were thousands of voices talking all at once all around me. People screamed in pain, laughed, or cried. The feelings were all over the place and crazy. Then I heard a voice I knew. It was my dad's, through all the noise. Even though he had died a while ago, he was still there telling his son, "It's not your time yet." I tried to answer and call out to him, but nothing came out. My voice seemed to have gone away with my body. I kept going through the tube, though. It was so dark that you could almost touch it, but for some reason, it didn't feel scary. It was warm and comfortable, like a cosmic womb taking me somewhere I didn't know. As I floated, memories from my childhood, my wedding to Maria, and the day we adopted Rex started to flash before my eyes. It felt like my whole life was being played back to me quickly, scene by scene, as if I could still see it all. That's when I realized this was what people meant when they said near-death experience. For years, I thought those stories were made up to get people's attention and were not true. But I was going through something that broke everything I thought was real. Something started to change as I floated further. The thick darkness that had been around me began to fade. I saw a tiny point of light off in the distance. At first, it seemed far away, but as I got closer, the light got brighter and stronger. Not like the sun or a lamp. This wasn't just any light. It was moving and pulsed with what seemed like the whole universe's energy. Still, what struck me most was how the light and the darkness looked like they were in a fierce battle. The light pulled and stretched to try to get bigger, but the darkness was trying to swallow it up. It felt like two huge, uncontrollable forces were fighting for power. There was a lot of worry building up inside me as I watched. I had a million thoughts, like, am I dead? Was this the edge of death? What would happen if I got to that light? What if the darkness won? Not only was that fight between light and dark going on around me, it was also going on inside me. On one side, I felt a strong pull toward life. I wanted to go back to Maria, my family, and everything I knew. The other side had a strange desire to give up, to give in to the darkness, and to leave everything behind. Then it dawned on me. I wasn't just looking at the fight. I took part in it. I was involved in the fight in some way. Each thought and emotion I had seemed to tip the scales of light and dark. The light got stronger when I thought about happy times like love, connection, and joy. It was almost like the light fed off of those feelings. But when thoughts of hopelessness and dread crept in, the darkness grew stronger and pushed back against the light. At that point, I understood this fight wasn't just about life and death. It was about having a choice. I could pick between light and dark. I could either keep fighting or give up and let the void take over. It was like a bolt of lightning when I got this idea. It made me feel free, because I knew I had some power over what was going on, even in that scary and strange place. On the other hand, it was scary because I felt responsible for everything. It wasn't just about my fate. I had to choose to do something. As I thought about this, I saw that the light start to change. It was no longer a little dot off in the distance. It started to grow, stretch, and slowly shape itself into something that could be recognized. Then, out of the blue, something amazing happened. A small sphere of light split off from the bigger source and began to drift toward me. It was about the size of a tennis ball, but it gave off this huge, unimaginable force. I could feel a wave of warmth wash over me as it got closer. It wasn't a physical heat, though. It was more of a mental warmth, full of love, kindness, and understanding. The worry, fear, and doubt that were building up inside me started to leave. There was a deep, intense sense of calm and peace in its place, which I had never felt before in my life. Things got really strange when the light sphere got close. I didn't hear a voice in the normal way. It was more like I could hear a voice inside me. What's so crazy? It was my voice, but it was smarter and full of information I had never had before. Then that voice began to answer questions I didn't even know I had. He talked about the nature of the universe, the meaning of life, and the reason of being. Then he dropped a bombshell that blew my mind. The voice said, "Everything you think is real is just a simulation." The physical world, time, space, it's all part of a massive construct meant to keep you from seeing the true nature of existence. This was hard to take at first. Like a game. That thought was a strange sci-fi idea. Still, I couldn't get rid of the feeling that it was true. It was like a cover had been lifted, revealing the truth about the world I thought I knew. The voice kept going. People are stuck in this simulation because they think it's the only real world. But there's a lot more after that. You are multidimensional people who can live in many worlds at the same time. Something about this was too much for my head to handle. It was like trying to hold water in your hands. But the light sphere seemed to know that I was struggling. It grew and wrapped itself around me completely. All of a sudden, everything became very clear. I could see the structure of the world and how everything is linked together in the light. It was like seeing how the threads of reality were all connected in a huge web. I understood that what we do doesn't just affect the world around us. It has effects on everything in the universe. What we think of as self is really just a small part of who we really are. The real us is so much bigger and more complicated than what we experience in this life. And death? The light showed that there is no such thing as death as we know it. In other words, it's just a change in state. As time goes on, our awareness changes and grows. When I heard this news, I was amazed and sad at the same time. How could I have lived my whole life without know these things? How much time did I waste on things that didn't seem important anymore? But the light made me feel better by showing me that everything I do, everything I experience, everything I mess up, everything I feel happy or sad, has a reason. It's all a part of how we evolve as aware beings and grow. As the light went out, I knew that my time in this amazing state was almost up. But the voice told me one last thing before the light went out. Remember, you are not just what you think you are. What you are and how you live your life are both up to you. Be smart with this information. The light went out all of a sudden, and I was back in the dark cave. I wasn't the same person, though. I felt completely different after meeting the sphere of light. The way I saw the world changed, and I got a better sense of what life is all about. But I didn't have much time to think about how I felt, because the next thing that happened threw me into something very intense. All of a sudden, my whole life flashed before my eyes. Not like those short movie montages you hear so much about. It was so much more intense and true to life. Every major event in my life was happening all over again. I wasn't just watching it from afar. It made me feel it all over again, right there. Running around the park with my parents made me feel like a kid again. On my first day of school, I felt the same mix of nerves and joy. My first kiss was exciting, and getting into college made me feel proud. But I had to remember more than just the good things. I had to go through the painful events again, like the losses, disappointments, and sadness. It wasn't just feeling my own emotions that hurt the most, though. I could also sense how what I did affected other people. Someone would thank me and feel better after I did something nice for them. When I was mean or selfish, though, I felt the pain and sadness I caused. I thought about a fight I had with Maria and said some very nasty things. I didn't understand how badly I hurt her at the time. I could feel her pain as if it were my own, though, because of this. It was terrible. On the other hand, I saw how small acts of kindness can make a difference, like the time I helped an older woman cross the street, which didn't seem important at the time. I could see how that one easy thing had made her day better and helped her believe in people again. I learned how deeply linked we all are through this life review. Little things we do have big effects on other people that we don't always notice. I could see how the decisions I made turned into long lines of events that affected people I didn't even know. It made me feel small and opened my eyes. I thought about all the times I could have done good things but didn't because I was afraid or thought about myself more than others. But what made this stand out to me was that it wasn't about being judged. There was no prize or punishment. It was just a lesson that helped me see how my acts really affected other people in a way I never could have before. I was mentally drained when this life review was over, but I felt deeply changed. I felt like I had a much deeper understanding of how important each choice we make is. As this experience came to an end, I had this amazing feeling of growing, like my mind was stretching and getting ready for something even bigger. Just when it looked like the crazy things that had already happened couldn't get any worse, something even stranger happened. I was looking back at my present life, but all of a sudden I was going back to past lives. In the first scene, I was dressed in a smart, expensive suit and sitting on the edge of a bed in a hotel room. I was filled with a terrible sadness that made me feel like it was eating me whole. I had a gun in my hand and was horrified by what I knew was going to happen. It was me in a past life, and I tried to scream to stop that man from killing himself, but I couldn't do anything. The shot was heard, and then everything went dark. The scene changed. Now I was a whaler in the 1800s, on a boat in the middle of the ocean. I could smell the sea and hear the sailors' cries. I was also hunting whales. The hunt made people feel both excited and terrible about killing these beautiful animals. On that beach, I was an old man, looking out at the water with 2 kids next to me. That was the end of my life. I had a huge weight on my heart because I felt terrible about the people I had killed and the damage I had done to the ocean. When I looked into my kids' eyes and saw love and sadness, I understood that what I did didn't just affect me, but also the people I cared about. These glimpses into past lives showed patterns that kept happening. I saw that the things I did out of selfishness or lack of thought had effects on people many lives beyond my own. The hurt I caused in the last life seemed to follow me into the next. Not everything was bad, though. I saw love, bravery, and suffering, too. In some lives, I changed things for the better, helped other people, and left the world a little better than I found it. This event showed me that our trip is much more complicated and long than we usually think. We are not just the result of this one life. We are the sum of many lives, and each one taught us something important. The life I'm living now seems like a small part of a much bigger story. I've learned that the problems I have, the people I care about, and even my depressive episodes all have deeper causes than I ever thought possible. When my trip through past lives was over, I felt both small and huge at the same time. It seemed so small compared to the endless time and things I had seen. It was huge because I realized I'm not just this body, this identity, or this one life. I felt more responsible after leaving. Every decision and action we make has an effect on more than just this life. It has an effect on our future lives and the lives of those around us. I was pulled back to the present moment just as this exploration of past lives came to an end, but not in the way I had planned. I wasn't back in my body. I was floating above it, acting like a witness as I watched my almost suicide scene. I saw that my dead body was lying on the couch, the whiskey bottle was on the floor, and there were several empty medicine bottles on the coffee table. That was a sad sight, but seeing how my acts hurt the people I loved the most hurt me the most. As Maria called my name when she got home from work, I felt more and more scared. You could feel how scared she was, and her scream of desperation broke my heart. I saw her shaking her hands in fear and panic as she desperately called for help. I saw the paramedics come and work hard to save my life while Maria cried and begged me not to leave. I could feel her pain, her fear, and her anger at how selfish I was. Then the scene changed to my sister Laura getting the terrible news. She looked shocked, and her shock quickly turned to anger. How could I do this to them? I understood that what I did wasn't just about me. It was a rejection of everyone who cared about me. And Rex, my loyal dog, was there too, lying next to me on the couch and softly whining. I saw how he got sad over the next few days as he refused to eat and waited for me to come back. It became clear to me that what I did had a big effect on everyone around me. It was a wake-up call about how our choices can affect others. It was hard to understand how my dog, Rex, was suffering because of the careless choice I made. The scenes kept happening, and I saw my own funeral. Maria was dressed in black and looked lost and sad. My parents were older and heavy with sadness, and my friends and coworkers were trying to figure out what I did. Seeing the future that would never happen if I didn't make it, though, was what really hit me. I saw Maria years later, still having a hard time with my death, and my niece, who hadn't even been born yet, growing up without ever meeting her uncle. I saw things I would have done, people I would have helped, and happy times that would never happen. It was too much to handle. During all of this, I felt like two small balls of light were calling me to move forward and pulling me up. I was at a very important intersection. I could either fight my way back to life or go to whatever comes after death. It was a strong pull that was hard to avoid. Some of me wanted to give up and go into the unknown, but the pictures of Maria's pain, Laura's broken heart, and Rex's loneliness held me down. I understood that my life wasn't just mine. It was a gift and a duty. I was a part of everyone I loved and every life I touched. Not only would giving up hurt me, it would cause pain to spread in ways I couldn't even imagine. Being aware of this, I made my choice. Focusing on all the reasons I wanted to stay alive, I fought against the force that was pulling me up. I thought about Maria and the goals we still had for our life together. The thought of Laura made me want to see my niece be born and grow up so much. I thought about my loving and loyal dog, Rex, who was waiting for me to come back. Then I felt myself being pulled back into my body with a jolt that shook me to my core. Going back to my body felt like being sucked into a storm and then dropped into cold water. I felt like every cell in my body was screaming in anger as I was hit with a heavy blow. When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was Maria's face, which was wet with tears. She had fear and hope in her eyes as she held my hand. I was in an ambulance, so there were beeps and people all around me. My throat hurt and was too dry to speak. I could only make a weak moan. Maria yelled to the rescuers, "He's awake!" with happiness and relief in her voice. Everything after that was a blur. I remember being rushed to the hospital while doctors and nurses talked so fast I could hardly hear them. That's how they got rid of the pills. I was in the ICU for a few days. I was so lucky, the doctor told me. If Maria had come home a few minutes later, I probably wouldn't have made it. It took a while for my body to heal after the big blow, but the real journey was just starting. Once I was steady enough, psychologists and psychiatrists began coming to see me. I was told I had serious depression and started getting a lot of help. It was hard the first few weeks. My memories of the near-death experience were broken up and hard to understand. I wondered if everything I had seen and heard was real, or if it was all a dream caused by the drugs and booze. I hoped it was just a dream at first, but I knew it was more than that. As my thoughts began to clear, I put together the pieces of what I had seen and experienced: the dark tunnel, the bright light, and the glimpses of past lives. Each memory made me feel a flood of strong feelings. I didn't want to talk about it with my doctors at first because I thought they would think I was crazy. They didn't judge me, though. Instead, they told me that thinking about these events would help me heal. Maria was my rock the whole time. In the hospital, she stayed with me for hours and hours while I tried to explain what I'd been through. I'd cry for no apparent reason sometimes and get lost in thought other times. She always stood by me and didn't ask me what I thought. Also, my sister Laura was always there. At first, she was mad at me for trying to kill myself, but as time went on, her anger changed into support and understanding. The things we talked about helped me make sense of a lot of the things that had happened to me. I had a big change in how I felt about life as my body started to heal. Things like money, status, and career success that seemed important at the time now seemed small in comparison to what I had been through. I began to enjoy the little things more, like Maria's smile in the morning, Rex's loving touches, and the sound of rain on the window. Right now, every second feels valuable, and every contact with someone is a chance to make a difference. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. I kept on my way to health. That path wasn't easy. There were hard days, times of doubt, and times of fear. But I was also stronger than before. The deep understanding I had gained had given me resolve. There was no way I was going to waste the second chance that had been given to me. It's been a year since that terrible night, and my life has changed in ways I never thought possible. I didn't get magic or other special skills from the near-death experience, but it did give me something much more valuable, a new way to look at life and existence. When I was younger, I was a firm believer in science and thought that anything that couldn't be proven scientifically was just made up. This included God, faith, and life after death. Nowadays, I don't consider myself religious in the usual sense, but I have grown to value the spiritual side of life more. I've learned that the world is so much bigger than what our limited senses can see or what science can explain right now. Maria and I's friendship has grown deeper than I ever thought possible. We went through some tough times after I tried to kill myself, but together we found new strength. Now that we know how fragile and valuable life is, we treasure every moment. The way I do things at work has changed a lot. I used to be stressed out all the time because I was always looking for the next big deal or raise. Now, I enjoy my job and helping my coworkers, which makes me happy. My boss noticed this change and recently gave me a leadership role, not because I was ambitious, but because of how I've changed and become more calm and caring. There have been big changes in my friendship with my sister Laura. After seeing how my death would have affected her, I made an effort to get back in touch with her. We are now more than ever close. It was one of the best times of my life when my niece was born 6 months ago. Having that little person in my arms made me realize how valuable life is. The mindfulness and meditation skills I've learned help me stay grounded and in the present moment. I also started volunteering at a nearby shelter because I wanted to help others and make a change in their lives. I'm not going to act like everything is fine right now. I still have bad days and times when I question and fear things. But these problems are different because I'm facing them with a new sense of purpose and thanks. I have a new perspective on life and appreciate all of its parts more because of this experience. Now I know that there is always a choice, even in the worst times, and I'm determined to pick life, love, and connection. Thanks for telling such an important and personal story. It's clear that what you went through changed your life, and your thoughts give us a lot to think about when it comes to existence, choice, and the worth of every moment. Your path from hopelessness to understanding and rebirth is both moving and inspiring. I really like how you've come to understand how important it is to live honestly and thoughtfully. Your message about having choices and the results of our actions is very important. It also reminds us that life is a gift that we should treasure. For others who may be struggling, this kind of growth and understanding can really be a light of hope. When you tell your story, you give others a point of view that can make them think about their own lives, look for meaning, and live more fully. If you learned anything from this, it's that life is worth living with love and purpose, no matter how complicated it is. Thanks for going over that again. As for how to share this story with others, it's helpful to make a place where people can hear stories like this and find hope. Your message can reach and inspire a lot of people, whether it's through blogs, movies, or something else. Again, thank you for being honest and for the lesson of strength and hope.